God, here we go again.
Guinea
We're
pig.
doing this. That's right. The fighter and the therapist.
No, the fighter.
Right? The young man and the old lady.
You're the fighter. You're the fighter. Well, look, Suzi,
The fighter.
thanks. We've had a multitude of conversations over the past almost 18 months. Something like that. Yeah, we'll be 2 years pretty soon. And you know, we've talked a lot about a lot of things. So anyway, I'm really excited to have you on today. I think you've become a real special person in my life because, you know, I prided myself on being probably the most emotionally strong, tough person ever. That's what I thought I was.
That's what you thought you were. Yeah, we saw right through it.
Yeah. And I've never had therapy. I tried once, probably 15 years ago, 12 years ago or something like that. It was really weird and bizarre, and like, you know, I was imagining myself as a child, and like, I don't know. I could tell like I needed to do something, but it just wasn't like, it just went too fast, too quick. But anyway, and that was it. In therapy, growing up in my life, in my household, I mean, we went to church.
That's right. That was your therapy.
And outside of that, it wasn't like really a big discussion. But long story short, you're the first person to open my eyes to the idea that not just that I need therapy, because I do, but that completely aside from my needs, the same way creatine is a performance tool, protein, sleep, we're learning is lighter fluid if you use it right, recovery, like all these things are performance tools.
That's right.
You open my eyes to the idea that, you know, therapy and working on your emotional health the same way you work on, you know,
Everything else.
health-wise, is a performance tool. So thank you. I'm excited about this conversation, and I just wanted to give some groundwork. Lay the groundwork to why I wanted to talk to you. Also, the last thing, this will kind of lead me into my first question, is you open my eyes to like the mental health. I don't know, the conversation around mental health for the past 100 years for sure, but even the past 20 years is kind of, in many ways, kind of screwed up. And
Very.
Obviously there's people out there doing it right, but most doing it wrong. The terms we use, the framework that we use to discuss and so on and so forth just is off. And obviously I'm butchering it, I'm not a therapist. But these are all eye-opening, so wanted to use this time to kind of, number one, talk about your background so people can understand that, but just dig into kind of what the landscape has looked like over the past 100 years, what you think it looks like now, your beefs with it, what you think the future of mental health or emotional health is, and so on and so forth. But before that, how did you get here, Suzi?
Oh my gosh.
Take your time.
Wanted to write
Take your time. Don't give me the bullet points. Normally I
I'm
say
pretty
bullets.
old, so we don't have that much time. I always wanted to write a book. I've written a couple in the past, and I'll probably write another in the future. And I thought the best title for me is Every Mistake in the Book.
Every mistake in the book.
Because I've made them all, at least a couple of times.
Yep.
So the point is how I got here was through the effects of what happened to me, how it affected me, how I actually took some of those effects and hurt myself even more, and how I had some post-traumatic growth and wisdom from them as well. And then what I had to do was I had to keep trying to do it myself and do it faster and ignore what happened to me. It's kind of like what you said about how strong you are, I'm emotionally strong. Yeah, well, sometimes that's a facade. You know, it's kind of like a Hollywood set. Looks like a house, but behind is 2x4s. So this idea that all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, over the course of years of me trying to hold it together, I had to crash and burn. Like I had to finally admit what happened to me was so horrific, and I was so affected by it in so many ways that I could not keep that facade up any longer. And best thing that ever happened to me. You know, that I did. Oh my God, yes. I wouldn't give up that year of falling apart, crying every day. Like every day. I'm telling you, I cried every day. I did nothing. I lost everything, including my dog. Even I had to give that away to a friend. And I cried at 3 Al-Anon meetings a day, morning, afternoon, and night. Buddhist meditation and Billy Blank's Taibo kickboxing next to Magic Johnson's. So if you have hair like this, you can hide your crying, you know, so I'm like crying like this. But I just want to say that when I went into therapy the first time, and I listed off all the horrific things that happened to me as a child, I was so devoid of being connected by them and feeling the weight that as I'm thinking and she's sitting over there and I'm going, yeah, and this happened, that horrible thing happened, and this sexual molestation and poverty and all of this, and abuse. And I'm just listing it like I just went to Trader Joe's. And then I look over, I take a breath, and I look over, and this is what I see. I see a woman who's so traumatized by what she's hearing. She's got her hand over her mouth, she's got tears in her eyes, and she just keeps saying, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. But I look at her like, what happened in this room that makes her so sad? I look behind me, there's a wall behind me. I could not believe that woman was so empathetic to what happened to me. And I looked at it, and it went through my body like an explosion. And I started to cry, and I didn't stop for a year. Because I stopped crying at 10 years old because no one was coming to fix anything. Things were not going to change.
It was worthless.
That's not happening, so just suck it up. Right? Don't do it. Here's the good news. When I finally felt all that trauma and the effects of it and started to cry was when I was able then to go look for help, ask for help, and do the things that I've always deserved to do to create the core strength. Now, you and I are always talking about strength in here and core strength. We're not just talking about having big shoulders and, whatever. We're talking about having the inside of your body strong enough to take a punch. Am I right? Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I wasn't emotionally strong enough to take any more punches. So I had to build what I call real mental health. And I also realized, and something that I'm so grateful for here, that therapy is one way to do it. There's another way to do it, and that's called training. So when I work with people like you, athletes, when I work with combat veterans, when I work with people that on a daily basis know that in order for them to be prepared for something, they have to train and they have to stay in the combat world, they call it battle ready, right? Mm-hmm. So I had to figure out how to work every day on my mental health, not just once a week at 1 o'clock when I go sit in front of the therapist. That was the greatest thing that happened to me, was the idea that, okay, I can do therapy, I am a licensed therapist, and I can do mental health coaching. You're a coach, you're a trainer, and so am I. And that's what I love. And when I walked in these doors, and when I first talked to you, and you talked about building a community, nothing can help people's mental health better. No therapist, no, medicine can help better than community. Nothing. Belonging and being a part and having a team to help you. That's the greatest mental health we can have.
Plain and simple.
Yeah, it's that simple.
And then tell me, when did, and then at which point in your life did you decide to become a therapist? And I think what I've learned about you is you've had a multitude of experiences, from baking.
Baked muffins.
Dance.
I put so much raspberry jam in them that people, they sold out. Hate when you bite something and it's a little bit of something inside. There should be a lot of something in there.
Dancing. I've got to have one of your muffins one day. But
Yeah.
Baking, dancing at the highest level.
Condom store.
Condom store, the first
Condom store.
in New York during the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah.
Producing shows.
Yeah.
Teaching acting, so on and so forth. I got to pull up find some of these pictures of you. If you're watching this, make sure to Google Suzi Landolphi. Just Google images and just see who we're talking to here. And at some point, you decided to get engaged in educating yourself on you're a licensed therapist. Can you talk to me about how that transition happened and why you decided?
It actually happened because I said to my daughter, I said, okay, I was in the entertainment business and I was just done. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to probably Montana or Wyoming and be a cowgirl. And she thought, well, you don't know anything about horses. I go, oh yeah, I should probably do that. I go to a ranch in Lancaster called Lifesavers Wild Horse Rescue. I do a weekend retreat, sleep on a bunch of bales of hay, and they teach you how to gentle a wild horse. So they put you in a 60-foot round pen with a wild horse and a helmet.
And a helmet.
Sounded like a good idea to me. And you have to learn about pressure and release and how to get that horse to trust you in order for you to get that touch. And when I got that first touch, George, again, crying, I burst into tears. And all of my childhood trauma and all of my feelings and thoughts about myself and actions came up and came together, almost like a big tsunami, and then went back down again. I had never felt anything so profound, so deep in my whole life than when that horse trusted me enough to touch it. And then I thought, oh, well, he just said I'm trustworthy. Therefore, I've worked at that, and it's working. And I thought, well, I'm not going to sit in an office. I want to be in a pasture with a bunch of horse shit, and I want to help people using horses. And that's how I got involved with that. But first, I had to go get licensed. I didn't want to get licensed, but I had to go get licensed. And it took me many years to decide to actually go take that test. I waited till the very last minute. Like if I didn't go in that day, I wouldn't have enough time. And I called my daughter on the way there after studying for a month in my pajamas for a month in my house. I called her, I said, I'm not going to pass this test. I don't believe most of this shit. I just can't do it. It's not going to work, and I'm so sorry. And I'm almost in tears telling her, I've always told you to finish what you start, and blah, blah, blah. And she goes, Mom, don't worry about it. You can be whatever you want. And I went, oh, that's right, and go be a cowgirl. And so now I'm all excited because I'm not going to pass the test. I go in, I sit down, can't answer the first 3 questions because they want it a certain way. And then I finish the test, and I hit submit, and you have to wait for the results. And I'm like, oh, where can I go? What can I, like, I don't even care about this anymore. And up comes pass. I go, shit, now I have to do that other test. And I became a licensed therapist. And what's good about that is if you want to change something, you've got to be part of the change by being inside of the change, not outside criticizing. You got to go inside. So being a licensed therapist and doing and working with some amazing, wonderful therapists, I was able to convince them and myself that we need to do things differently. Mental health has been racist ever since we started it. It's been sexist. It's been hypocritical. I can tell you to quit smoking, quit drinking, and lose 100 pounds. I can go home and smoke a carton of cigarettes, drink a gallon of wine, and eat a whole fucking cheesecake myself. So I can do all of that, and I go, I don't want to work that way. And for me, that idea then of being able to use my education and my experience to do things differently. And it's places like this that I want to do that. I don't want to do it in a facility. I don't want to know that you're coming in every Wednesday at 2 o'clock when I know that there's a good chance that your shit's going to hit the fan on Thursday, and I'm going to wait a whole week before I talk to you. I'm not doing it.
Amen. Amen. Well, and so tell me, and I'm glad, I love what you talked about. You said, because I feel like, look, there's many different ways to achieve change, right?
Yes.
You know, and a friend of mine during the BLM protests, I was really frustrated because I had seen, I grew up being aware of racism and bias and so on and so forth. But then I also had the benefit of, I grew up a mother who was, you know, like sometimes the lights weren't on, sometimes the power wasn't on, you know, sometimes I ate mayonnaise sandwiches, you know. But
I've been there.
Right, and I'm not saying we're the poorest of poor, but we definitely weren't rich or middle class. And we know what we would call hard times are like. We know what begging is like.
Yeah.
What, you know, acting like, yeah, I'll come over to eat, knowing that's going to be your one meal, right?
That's it.
With your friends, juxtaposed with being around my father, who, you know, by the time I was 8, probably 9, just immense amount of wealth compared to what I was used to, you know? He became world champion again. And I got to see both, and I got to see, oh, here's what it's like, you know, when you don't have money, which is one layer. When you don't have money in the South with a certain skin color, got to see what that was like. And then when when I'm rolling with my dad, and he's at the time one of the most recognizable sports figures ever at the time, definitely in the moment, pulls up in a Rolls Royce, hops off a private jet, people treat you different. All of a sudden you don't look like this anymore, at least that's how you're treated.
Yep.
And I got to see kind of all that. So when and then lastly, for some reason, witnessing all of that, right away I wanted to always own my own business or start my own business or be a part of a business where either I was with someone who was running it, so we were in control, or I was starting my own business primarily because I knew I never had to worry about race, bias, whether it's related to how much money you make or where you're from or whatever, getting in the way of me feeding my family or putting food on my own table. Secondly, I wanted to be able to hire whoever I wanted to hire. Irregardless of race. Have they been to jail? I don't care. What's their credential? I don't care. I'll give them one. That was always my attitude. Now, so BLM comes along, and I'm like, I've been seeing this, witnessing it. No one's done anything about this for a long time.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everybody wakes up and there's a problem. Oh, right? And I've been leveraging myself, working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never always worked on my birthday, done all these things to do the work, as they say. But when everybody's protesting and I'm not protesting, I'm an Uncle Tom, right? Or if you don't speak up, you're against us, or all this stuff. So that bothered me a lot, and I get it. I think that's part of the protest attitude, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's got to be up there. I get that, and I called one of my mentors, a guy named Dr. Douglas. He was a professor at Texas Southern University. He's the dean of the Thurgood Marshall Law School, and I was like, I'm really frustrated because I now have people that are not of my race sending me pieces of certified mail, mad because I'm not making a rash statement, and telling me I'm part of the problem. So he tells me, he said, look, Monk, he said, I know you feel that I feel the same way, because he said, I wrote op-eds and different things and tried to get them published in the Chronicle, and no one said anything. They're, oh no, we don't want to do it, we think this, and so now I've been doing the work at law school, training lawyers, right, and so on and so forth, and all of a sudden everybody now wants a quote from me, right? And that was super frustrating. But the one thing he did say, which I thought was clarifying for me, he said in terms of change and moving things forward, everything has a place. And he said what you do has a place, but he said what you do may be supported. You may get more support for what you're doing. You may move quicker, faster because of the protests.
Right.
You might not see eye to eye.
Yeah.
But the protests, maybe they're not doing what you're doing, but they're no worse than you, and vice versa. But you have to pause and say, I don't care what they say about me. I'm doing the work, and we trust. I trust that they're right. Something needs to change. Maybe that's not the way to do it. But
it's only one part of the way to do it.
It goes hand in hand.
Exactly. It's one part. And if you really want to make change, either in yourself, right? It's changing yourself first, right? Because you shouldn't be changing something you're not doing. Don't be telling people to do shit you're not doing. So that's definitely not going to happen. What also is important is you have to come at it from a lot of different directions. Why? Because everybody doesn't pick up information the same way.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't get inspired the same way. Everybody comes with a different context of what they've experienced. So you just explained brilliantly your context. So if somebody all of a sudden wants to get out in the streets and start that, and that's how they enter the change, that's one way.
That's part of it.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
We're back here. It's like, don't worry, when you come back, we'll be still sitting here doing the change internally. So the same for me, that when I want the mental health field or the way to help people and their mental health, trust me, I do not want to do what they did years ago. And the only way to do that is electric shock. Let's just drill holes in people's head, let the demons out. I'm glad we're not doing that anymore. I hate the sight of blood. Okay, so the point being is that if I want the mental health field to change, I could go out and protest it, which I've done at times. I've spoken up, right? What's really helpful is when I'm sitting here with you and we're talking about it and we're thinking of another way to help change. Like we're literally going to go, oh, in our little moment here, we can do something different. Let the people still do in their own way if they want. They like that.
Please.
More power to them.
Keep it
You
going.
can have the people in the streets. Great. I'll bring you some water. And we're going to be back here doing what we do and helping that change. That's important to me. So I have to look at what I eat and what I say to myself and how stressed I get. And when I'm working out here, I have to look at a lot of ways that I go after my health. And that's the same thing to me.
And what struck me about what you said is, so going back to Dr. Douglas, it's respect and appreciate the protest. That's part of it. That just may not be your lane. Do your lane, but then there's other lanes, and you talked about, you said, I wanted to change things, so I started from within. Like you got licensed, learned everything that was the traditional way of doing things or the classical way. But day one, you were ready to disrupt. And so I'm going to ask you a little bit in a second, kind of what are the things that you saw that were in your gut told you that was wrong, but also later on what you learned was wrong. But before I do that, can you tell me from your standpoint, how bad is this problem right now? What in the news they call it the mental health epidemic. Just how bad it is. Are there any, whether it's statistics or is there any context you can give? Because I didn't realize how bad it was. Like I heard for example, I know like child molestation is a problem, right? Sexual abuse is a problem. I didn't know. I heard a figure the other day. I'm not sure if it's true, but it was from a very reputable source that 1 in 4 women have been sexually abused.
It's true. That's been around for a long time, actually.
Did not know that. And then I heard 1 in 6 men.
That's right.
I've never heard anything close to a statistic about men. People don't even talk about it. How bad is this problem?
It's that bad. And that's only the ones that we can get the information from. So always know that once you have information about something, it's probably worse because there's people that are never going to admit that happened, right? It's really bad because if you think about it as a species and as a culture, we have been more concerned, and some cultures even worse about it, more concerned about our presentation than our reality. So if you always know I'm saying you can measure your wellness by the space between your contradictions. So the contradictions of saying, I love my kids, and then you're screaming at them, telling them, what are you, stupid? Like, that's a huge contradiction. So I also want to tell you, we talk all about the flu all the time and contagion and everything. It's not just the flu, it's how your body reacts to the flu, right? I mean, that's what we're realizing is that when your immune system is stronger, you can fight things off. So you're not as contagious. You don't accept contagion as easily. Guess what? Mental health is contagious. Mental health is contagious. It was contagious with slavery. A whole bunch of people believed that was okay to do. The Holocaust, the first genocide, which was Native American. You can convince people to believe, to think something and feel something, and then have those thoughts and feelings affect their actions so easily. And that can go through a culture and a population like a wildfire goes through here. So when you say how bad it is, if we don't speak up, so let's go back to the protests for a second. One of the good things about, if we say protesting or speaking out, if you just want to, it's not even a protest, just speaking out, is things can only exist and grow in silence. So the fact that you said, oh my gosh, I need to go look up at this, how bad is this? And you were surprised by how bad it is. You're helping everybody that goes and takes a look at that and says, oh my goodness. The other thing that we need to know is that mental health gets passed down, not just genetically. In fact, that's the least amount of way that your mental health is passed down. It's how you're treated. It's what happens to you. And every time you at least are curious about what happened to you, how it affected you, and do I really want to think that way? Do I really want to feel that way? Do I really want to act that way? When you question that, I mean, I'm sitting here going, okay, I had to pass a test to do this work. I get that. I have to now pass a test to get my license renewed because I'm over 70. I flunked it 3 times so far. I can drive, I just can't pass the test. So I'm going to start studying again because I got till March 1st. But the point that I'm saying is they care about how I view my driving and how I can physically manage it. And we don't care how we are as parents. We're not talking to people about parenting. We now care what happens to women in terms of if they are pregnant, what they should eat and drink and not smoke and all of that. That's a help. But the fact is that we don't understand how that poverty affected you, how the times you did experience racism, how much your mom got upset at times and what she had to go through, and your dad, I don't care that he was world champ, he still had to go through some shit.
My God.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the fact that we are now finally starting to open this up and everybody's talking about mental health now, I'm grateful. Now what we have to do as we talk about it has to do what you and I are doing, is we're bringing it here, we're talking about it here, and we're actually training people on how to help their mental health. That's the key. That's it. And that's how you stop the contagion.
I'm glad you said that. The statistics are killing me. Like I read one the other day that I think opioid deaths are somewhere between 250 to 300 a day, and like 200 of those are fentanyl. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of those are
and we had heroin before that when I was growing up.
Yep. And then suicides.
Yep.
Lost my sister. Pictures up there to suicide. Mm-hmm. It's a big issue. I think. So tell me. I think what did you notice when you were studying? And then I'll move on. But when you were studying that was, or just now, what's wrong with the way mental health has been defined, approached, et cetera? You talked about it a little bit more, but there are 2 or 3 things that right off the bat you can say we were wrong about this. Not we, you, but
yeah. There was actually a wonderful therapist, Carl Rogers, who really was very irritating to all the other therapists, because what he was asking for was for us to be authentic and to do what's called a parallel path, which means as I'm helping you and we're talking about what's going on, I'm doing the work as well. So one of the most
as a therapist?
As a therapist,
okay.
Meaning as a person. So he was a therapist. He'd sit with people and they would talk about, their issues, and he could self-disclose as well. He would identify and give unconditional positive regard, meaning I get it. He was the first person to really say that we have to sit here human to human. He almost saw it as peer-to-peer support, so that it wasn't that I have all this information and all this magical tools and all this skill, and you just have something wrong with you. I think the second thing for me is the diagnosis. I don't know if you've noticed, but now that we have cell phones and everything, everybody can diagnose themselves and each other. And we have a thing that I've noticed in the last 15 years is it's called the diagnosis du jour. Like, so now everybody has ADD. And now everybody that's angry with their partner, it's because they're a narcissist. So I mean, and everybody was bipolar 10 years ago. Yeah. So the point being is that when we just look at the diagnosis of something and not the context of it, like, why do I go up and down? Oh, I lived in a household where my mother was happy one minute and totally depressed and in a room for 2 days the next, or 5 days, right? And people don't like to hear this because they're just shocked. They do want to believe something's wrong with them so it can be treated. And how should it be treated? Mostly by meds, because that's how I don't know if you've gone into CVS and seen how many drugs
you said people want to know that something's wrong with them because then they know it can be treated.
Then they know it can be treated,
okay,
right? So they're from the mindset, there's something wrong with me, so it's not my fault, and it's not anything, and I really have something wrong with me.
It's not mom's fault, not
it's
dad's
right.
fault.
Yeah, exactly, it's not what happened
fault.
to me. It's really that, and I can just take these pills and I'll be okay. The meds that we use most of the meds that we use for any kind of psychological treatment was never created to cure anything. It was only to help lessen the symptoms' intensity so that people could do the actual work that actually does help heal, right? So an anti-anxiety pill isn't to cure anxiety. It's to allow you to be able to take a deep enough breath so that you can come here and go to the gym. You can meditate. You can do things.
And I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it. So, for instance, like when you go get surgery, sometime when you have surgery, they'll give you anesthesia so they can work on you.
It can work on you.
Right. So what you're saying is, if I'm understanding this right, sometimes the medication is so that we can go to work.
That's right. So we can go to work. We can go do that.
Got it.
And I think what's happened is because now let's face it, it's a pharmaceutical country. That's what we are. So it's this idea that we can give you a med, and anybody can give it. Not anybody can give it to you, but your primary doctor can give it to you. They're going to say, by the way, did you go to the gym? Did you go to meditation? Are you doing some breath work? How are you doing on your eating? That's not happening. You're getting the med, and then hopefully, do you feel a little better? Good, got it. So that's the first thing that I'm just, it's like so not okay, because it's not how they were developed. It wasn't what they were developed for. So let's go finding what's wrong with you and having a diagnosis with no story no story about what happened to you, and what good did you even get from that story. So that's probably my biggest concern right now, is that we're going to start calling you names. So that's what a diagnosis is to me, and you're going to start to feel like, oh, I do have something wrong with me, and then and you might even be more hopeless because of it. You might be happier maybe because of it. I just don't find it as helpful as knowing your story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you in that continuing that thought. What are some of the any other that you just described? I think a big limitation of the way things are kind of being handled. Any other limitations in terms of like the traditional mental health?
Yeah,
machine?
We have to go into an office that neither you and I live in. So I want to help you live in your house, not my office.
Gotcha.
That's number one. The idea that it's an hour a week to discuss. It's actually 45 minutes. We get to charge for an hour because we have to write the note. And this idea too that I am so removed from what it is you're doing. Now, I don't want to make it all, because some people have had some amazing experiences with their therapist in their office for an hour a week. I get that. Don't get me wrong. It's not that it's bad for everybody. It's just that we need more options. So what's the other problem? Is we don't have enough options. It's why mental health coaching is making such a stir right now, that, whoa, there's other ways we can do this, so that I can know what's happening to you when it's happening. Like, I want to know when it's happening. And therefore, we can deal with it right at that moment. And the last thing I would say is sitting down and talking. Okay, we could sit here and talk about boxing, or we could actually go in that ring and do it, actually get the benefit of it by actually doing it. So I'm not with you when you're doing it. I'm not helping you do it when I'm sitting in my office. So there's a real disconnect about the brain works this way. You have thoughts, feelings, and actions. So it's the only three things you have. And by the way, thoughts and feelings are the exact same thing. We just call them different things. Actions are what changes the brain. Actions change the brain. Even meditation is an action. So that idea that if we do different, we'll become different, can't think yourself into right action, you can act your way into right thinking. I still have some thoughts that are probably not the kindest, nicest thoughts. I am half Italian, the bottom half's Italian, and I still know how to make cement. I still have some people in my life that I would just love to give them a pair of shoes with cement in them, right? Of course I don't do it. I don't change those thoughts. I'm like, yeah, that person. I change my actions, George. That's what you do in here. Yep. You're helping people change their actions, which changes their thoughts and their feelings. That's what we did when we had those mental health groups at night, right? Yep. We asked people to go home. What did we ask? I remember one of your staff, we said to her, just stop yelling at your father. Remember that? Yeah. Just stop yelling. Just try that for a week. She came back and went, oh my God, my week was so much better because I didn't argue or yell with my dad.
But she got out there and did the work and then came back and talked to you.
Yeah, that we actually told her, we gave her an action to do something or to not do something or do something different. That's what I think is. And
could you talk about it? What are you, so with your attitude on the way, the right direction, what are some of the key components or practices that you think will, like in real time, in ways that people can see will transform someone's outlook, improve their emotional health? I heard you talk about changing, dealing with, you said thoughts, feelings, and actions. But what are some of the things that, like, top three things that right away that you think people should start engaging in to change their emotional health that are kind of the no-brainers?
Yeah, I think everybody should go get this drug and get as much as they can and take it as often as they can. And it's called oxygen. Like all of us who are anxious, all of us who have been through trauma, and you said those statistics, so you can only imagine if it was sexual abuse, 1 in 4 and 1 in 6 guys. Yep. You can imagine some other shit happened too.
Yep.
So when you get trauma and when you are anxious, you shallow breathe. When you shallow breathe, your body thinks that someone's doing this to you, And then you get a shot of adrenaline. And what does adrenaline do? Adrenaline doesn't help you focus.
Yep.
Doesn't help you think. Doesn't help you do the math problem. Doesn't help you focus on your work that you're doing. So now I have ADD. No, you might have the effects of trauma that has affected you so much that your body is now floating and is drowning in adrenaline. What stops adrenaline? No drug stops adrenaline except oxygen. It will shut it off. But you've got to practice that breathing hourly. Get your phone out, put a little dinger on it every hour, and when you hear them, my watch tells me to stand up. It's like, oh, it's time to stand up. I'm going to make it, it's time to breathe.
Yeah.
And that deep breathing. That's why so many people love working out. They don't even know it, that they're forcing oxygen in their body. Oh, I feel so much better after I work out.
Just by moving.
Yeah, just moving. So that's super. And all of that stress, and I call it fear and sadness from trauma, is causing all the autoimmune problems that we have. So now everything that's an autoimmune issue comes from the fact that your immune system has been bombarded with adrenaline and stress, and it's tired. And I don't care if you're 12, you're probably, body's like 80 at that point when you're so stressed.
I'm laughing because I have had the past 6 weeks, I've been itching, scratching. I get these little things popping up, bumps and weird sick, all this stuff. And I went to the doctor and was like, what's going on? And he gave me prednisone. And I was like, okay, cool. I took the prednisone. And within a couple hours, I felt like a rock star, right? All the went away, the itchiness subsided. It's still there, but it's getting better. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I was thinking oh, this stuff, now I can't get sick, I'm on prednisone. And I went back and read what it does, and it looks like it suppresses my immune system.
Yeah,
Did I
it can.
understand that right?
I want to say something about, because I sound like I'm just anti-drug. I'm not. I am. My grandson had leukemia twice. He had it, because we come from a family of overachievers. So we always joke about that. The point being is, of course, some of the drugs he took were horrific, and he still has the effects from them. And some of them saved his life. And you know what else saved his life and helped him? Baseball. When he went to baseball, bald and throwing up in the trash can, that also helped him. And his mother's love and our humor and all of that. So here's my problem. Prednisone, okay, he took it, ate us out of house and home. I don't know if you've been hungry lately, but it will make you
I'm always hungry. I couldn't notice the difference.
Didn't notice the difference. And you have to come up. Very strong drug, and it will come off. Like testosterone, prednisone, it's one of those zones. So you have to come off of it slowly. At the same time, wouldn't it be helpful if we could find out what's happened to you in these last couple of months that maybe did move you up into the stress zone?
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe you stopped working out for you that I know you wanted to do and you're always thinking and trying. So maybe, just maybe, that meditation with the prednisone would be helpful.
Yep.
Right?
Well, it makes sense. It was obviously, and Sarah caught it. I didn't know what it was. I just took it. But long story short, it was my immune system was over responsive. My immune system was way too active.
Yes.
And I couldn't think why, because I'm always taking my allergy medication. I tried to, but long story short, it sounds like I was full of adrenaline, and this has been a tough 2 months for me.
Yes.
I've never had my body respond like that. Sorry to digress, but
no. This is important because that's what we're talking. What you're doing is what Carl Rogers did. Is we're talking about a parallel path between how somebody can help you, a doctor, a therapist, and them also sharing their experience. And now you're sharing your experience. Everybody that listens to this can go, oh my God, George is looking at how he runs his life, not just that I have allergies. What else is going on, right? And so the allergy medication helps and hurts. Every time you put something in your body, it's going to help and probably hurt. Yeah. So what else can we do for you that would also help you so that you don't have to get that adrenaline? That you can know that this is going to work. This is going to work. Crafts is going to work. Anything we do is going to work. That's just a fact. It's just going to work. Yeah. It's your turn. It's perfect timing. Let's do it.
Well, and so just to finish that thought, you talked about oxygen. So exercise, movement, there's a way to get it.
And not too much, because you can overdo that too.
Amen. A lot of people don't know that.
Meditation,
Meditation.
work,
Breath work.
eating your vegetables.
Eating your vegetables.
I mean, I know all those silly things. Eating whole foods versus processed foods. Like if there's a great book called Omnivore's Dilemma where you can...
Read that.
Yeah, you read it. Where,
Yeah,
if your grandmother can't read the ingredients, if there's more than 3 ingredients, probably shouldn't be eating it.
Can't pronounce it.
Yeah, so, and I mean, I know that there's people that love different things. Like I'm a real meat eater. My son-in-law is a great meat eater. And I say to him, just eat the best you can of that. If you're going to eat it, then do well. Eat 6 small meals a day. Do you know how many people don't eat and then they do, they eat one big meal and they feel terrible? Some people believe in fasting. Find what works for you. Pay attention to yourself physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, and financially. Financial means all of your resources. How do you manage your water? How do you manage your electricity? How do you manage your money? It's all the same under resources.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I noticed a lot of people, I was talking to somebody the other day about how I want to make sure we provide access to financial, I guess literacy is really not the term, but it can be for certain people. But
awareness, it can be
financial awareness.
Yeah.
And their response was, well, that not everybody's going to need that because there's some people who have a lot of money and da-da-da. I was like, whoa, that's not exactly what I'm saying.
That's right.
And that how mismanaging your finances or managing them in a way that's not conducive to your peace can cause emotional problems. You might never run out of money, but with the way you manage your financial life can cause you stress.
Oh my God.
Giving money to the wrong people or whatever it is.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for saying that. That's one of the wisest ways to look at it, is that it's not the amount of money you have, it's what it means to you. My dad used it as a weapon, right? It was punishment. It was a reward and punishment. So that doesn't make it easy for me to really like money if it was always used against me, right? So I have to know that. It's not the amount. It's
Wrong
what you do with it.
relationship.
Yeah. And what if you're spending it on things that are making you so unhappy, but you really want to go and build a school somewhere, right? But you're not like, yeah.
Or you keep giving, trying to change the world, and the people you're trying to change don't change.
Oh,
that can be frustrating. So we talked about movement. You mentioned meditation, breath work. One of the things I heard you talked a lot about, and with what we're working on is, like, not only do we want to give people the tools to affect change in their life, but we want to give them the tools with the accountability of a community.
Yes.
And so can you talk about community, just in general, why it's so important to you when we talk about emotional health?
When we talked earlier about this mental health epidemic, and we talked about parents not having a license to have children, but they have to want to drive a car. The least that we know about in our lives is child development. We don't know that. So every single one of us has not had a perfect parent or a perfect parental situation. And when you talk about an epidemic, that's really what the epidemic is that this epidemic of not being able to be nurtured by people that actually understand brain development of children and how our words affect them and how our actions affect them. So now you've got people bringing up people and setting them up so now you've got exponentially, you wonder why it's getting worse. Well, it's because this idea that as we have more kids or people have children and their children get hurt by this lack of child development, the next generation, each generation gets worse. They don't get better until somebody in the family, somebody says, whoa, wait a minute, I'm not doing that anymore. So there's got to be some knowledge where we say, all of us as a community, how were you brought up? How were you brought up? How were you brought up? So let's talk about what happened to us as peers. And then you get to tell your truth, and then you get a bunch of people going, oh shit, that's pretty bad. And then we start reparenting each other. That's really what this idea, Indigenous people did it brilliantly. Black people did it after work in the church. You talked about church. That was supposed to be a place where people could go and get inspired and also share their troubles.
With other people.
Right, the blues. Think about all these ways that we share with one another. So the greatest thing that we can do for one another is not just go get a really good therapist, which you can do, or a coach, mental health coach, you got to get a community of people that are willing to take a look at what happened to them, what they can do to change, and to support one another. Like we can call one another. We had that happen here. We had people that came in and shared something. We had one of your members share something she's never told anybody about a horrible trauma that happened to her, because we created a safe place where they could share. And it wasn't a therapy group. It literally was just a support group of mental health to get, and you called them skills. It was skills based on education and practice. So you teach us a skill here, but that skill doesn't get good until I practice it, right? So you tell me where my feet belong, how to throw that punch, right? You tell me where it is. That I don't have that skill the first time you show me. That only becomes a skill when I show up and I keep practicing. That's the same for mental health. You have to have the practices. You have to show up for yourself and do them regularly.
Belonging. Last time we were chatting, and it was partly the community piece, but I was, we talked about belonging, and I can't remember what I brought up, but you told me that this is one of the strongest forces or drivers of humans in general. Can you talk about belonging?
So Indigenous people, I was so blessed to have a stepfather who is Native American, Black, and Italian. He belonged to a lot of places because of that. And he didn't belong to at places because he was Black. So he knew where he belonged and where he didn't. So think about that and think about that trauma. So the idea of belonging, people talk about their self-worth, their self-esteem, self-love, a lot of that all comes from belonging.
And I remember now, I was watching this on Netflix, this documentary about this really, really odd cult that they called it. And I was like, why would people do that? And then you saw a moment where a lot of people were saying, like, I knew this was wrong, but I didn't want, and they stayed in for 2 or 3 years after they knew it was wrong. And you talked about the strength of the force of wanting to belong.
Want to belong, which when you think about it now, and thank you for bringing it up, we have some families where the children don't feel like they belong, or that the way they have to belong is they have to be so like what the parent wants in order to belong, right? So then we worry about, well, why do kids go out then and start gangs? Why do we pick a partner that absolutely on a daily basis makes us feel like we don't belong, we're not good enough, and we don't belong? It's so powerful, George, that I can't even tell you that essence of belonging that Native American people, way before the what I call the Europeans came and decided that was their house on their land. So way before that, they lived in a culture that even though they had trouble with other tribes, many of them, there was no question to any child in any tribe that they belonged. That was never a problem. They were always revered, but wait, it gets better. Not only was every child brought up by aunties and the entire tribe, every elder was revered as a wise elder. So they became one. Because they knew they were going to be valued as one, they worked to be a wise elder. And they very much knew that was the position that they belong in. How many people do we have in this world right now that never feel like they belong? Ever. And it can be race, gender, sexual orientation. It can be a million things. Immigrant, like where you come from, the fact that you talk different, you look different, you have some kind of uniqueness about you. I have a client that has cerebral palsy. Where does she belong, right? So yeah, it couldn't be more important.
So if I understand this right, because someone had said, I think it was you that said there's a loneliness epidemic.
Yeah.
But you said if someone didn't feel like they belonged in their own household, then they're highly likely to join some sort of negative group, like could be a gang, the wrong group at school, called the Flames,
or even a leader that says that Jewish people are going to ruin the blood of you people. Like, think about that. If I decide who gets to belong and who doesn't, if I'm not secure and with myself, I'm going to go along with that, right? Well, I want to belong. right?
Yeah.
So I'll do something, and you said it brilliantly. They were doing things that were wrong. They knew they were in the wrong place. They knew what they were being asked to do was wrong, yet they did it in order to belong. How strong is that need to belong if you'll go kill 6 million people or natives or keep holding people as slaves? Like, oh, at least I'm not a slave. I belong in this crowd that owns people,
At least
right?
I belong.
Yeah, it's absolutely imperative. And look where our country is now. It's like this idea that we are afraid, so terrified of not being validated and belonging, that we're literally fighting each other.
So tell me, thoughts. I want to jump back into something you said earlier. Thoughts, feelings, and actions. What do we call those?
Yeah. So those 3 parts of what makes a human being.
Thoughts,
right?
feelings, and actions.
Right.
And then what I've heard you say a lot is essentially thoughts, and I think I'm going to butcher this, but thoughts and feelings actions can change how you feel, I believe.
Yes. Actions change how you can think and feel.
Got it.
So here's what happens. Let's say, where did you get your thoughts and feelings? Let's start with that, because you come out, you can't even see.
And sorry, I think what I was trying to say, you would say how people fight so hard to change their thoughts and feelings.
Yes.
But if they only knew that actions can do that. So,
Easy,
got it.
easy. Because I'm the only therapist I don't give a shit about how you think. I don't give a shit about how you feel. And there's all kinds of therapies for thoughts and feelings, changing thoughts and feelings. I care what you do, because ultimately what you do is what's going to help you change those thoughts and feelings. You're going to have your own experience. You're going to actually have evidence. Like, oh, wait, not yelling actually makes me feel better? Like my kids are listening to me because I'm not yelling? But who knew that? Wow. So not doing something or doing something. How about owning your shit when you say something, you do something wrong, and you go, listen, I just want to apologize for what I just said. People will look at you and go, you just did what? You just apologized? I was just ready to have an argument with you. Now I can't even have it because you just apologized. So this idea that the practices are actions, and the more that you do those actions, the more you'll get evidence that you actually can create wonderful partnerships, and you can create wonderful community because of your actions. And you'll also notice that your thoughts and feelings can change and they go away. Oh, I hated you the first time I met you. But then I had an action with you. Somebody will say that to you sometime. Like, well, then we started to do something together, and I realized you were a really good guy. But the first thought was that you were an asshole. Right? I know, you must be an asshole.
Well, then what do you say to the person that is like, I go through this sometime because I have a hard time exercising or moving or meditating for the sake of myself. But if I know I have to box, or I have to have a speaking engagement coming up, I have to do something, I have to perform, I'll prepare myself, right? But if I don't have anything coming up, I'm not just going to do it for myself, right?
You're not that valuable that you should do something for you.
Well, I'm learning, right? But what do you say to the person that says, like, for instance, forget fitness. I know I feel I'm down in the dumps. I don't feel like myself. I just don't feel optimal. But I know from experience that if I just get up and go walk, or jog, or hit the bag, or meditate, or do some yoga. I know if I just do that, just something as simple as walking, I know I'm going to feel better. Yeah. But I can't get myself to do it.
Yeah, so it's this idea of integrity. I have arguments all the time with motivational speakers, and they're like, they're out there all the time talking to big crowds about motivation and motivating. I go, the hell with motivation. It never shows up when you want it. Yeah. It shows up when you don't. Right? I want to sit down and binge watch this, and all of a sudden motivation, no, come on, let's go to the gym. It's like, no. So I'm not about motivation. What I am about are principles. So let's talk about your principles. There was a time, too, when you were a little boy, that the only way that you really got validation was when you did something.
Yep.
You didn't get validation because you were just sitting on the couch and being hugged. You got that validation and all of that. You're a great kid and good boy and look what you did, blah, 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 blah. And so you were valuable when you were doing something. And then when you wanted to rest and just relax, you didn't get that. You probably even got, what are you, lazy? What are you doing? Get off the ass, let's go. Yep. Right? All right. So how are you going to do something for you? You were taught to do something to make other people feel better. I won't name their names, but you're right.
This is how it
Right.
is, yeah.
I mean, it's like when a parent says to me, "Oh, my daughter got into Harvard," and I go, "Did you get into Harvard?" I go, no, my daughter did. And I go, then why are you talking about it? You didn't do the work. Like, it's like you might pay for it, but you didn't do the work.
For me, don't lose that thought. For me, I had on one side, my mom, I remember, I'll never forget it. I came home, I was in first grade, I think, maybe second, but probably first, and I got a B. Could have been a B plus, but there's a B in front of it. And my mom, who's an angel, by the way, in so many ways, and like was the first person that like hit me to the idea of emotional health. She's had me meditating since I was 7. But she said, B's are for bullshit. Now, and my mom grew up in the British education system from St. Lucia, an immigrant. Her parents are very educated. Like her cousin went to Oxford, and another one was like one of the first people from St. Lucia to go to Yale. There's high expectations. B's are for bullshit. Don't you ever. On the other side of the spectrum, if I turned in a report card with straight A's, I got $100 from my dad.
That's what I mean.
So
you're not doing
I gotta
stuff for
perform.
you. You're doing it for them.
Yeah.
So now you're sitting here telling me I have a hard time doing something for me. I'll do it if I have to go perform, if I have to go do something. Dude, that's how you were trained.
That's a good point.
So what if you cared about you because you're valuable, George, just because you breathe, not because you have to accomplish anything, but that walk, that run, that you deserve, you don't need, you deserve to do something for you. You also deserve to sit on the couch with Hannah and just cuddle and not do anything. You deserve that too. So if we could start to do things, and if you say, I am gonna go get up early and go for a run tomorrow because I deserve it and I know I feel better. And then you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, I don't feel like it. Well, let's say if you make a promise to yourself, George, you should keep it because you're worth it. Because I know if you told me you were going to meet me at 5 o'clock in the morning,
I'd be there.
you'd be there.
Yeah.
So you're just as important to keep your promise to as anybody else that you promise. And the more you do that, the calmer you'll be. You will be calmer, less stressed when you are congruent, when your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions towards other people are the same towards you. When you don't treat yourself less than you treat me, you'll be calmer.
And is this so that's an action based,
Yeah.
So this would be an example of integrity being the principle.
Integrity
being the principle.
Yeah,
and
you don't
my
have to worry about
actions.
motivation. It's your principle. You gave your word to yourself.
Gotcha.
So you're just as important to keep your word to as you are to keep your word to me or Zoe or anybody else.
So one of the things we led with when we started Craft Yourself, these emotional health discussions at the gym, I think one of the early things we talked about is living by your principles, or your actions not being driven by your thoughts and feelings, but actions being driven by principles. Is that
Principles.
correct?
You make all your decisions based on your principles, not your thoughts and feelings.
And I believe you started by trying to identify 3 that we would try to live by for 6 weeks.
That's right.
Any more you can share on that? Because I think this, for anybody who's watching, will be a great first step, is just get out there and start living by
basis,
principles.
Yeah.
And picking 3 principles. Can
That's
you just talk about
Yeah.
where people should start in figuring out what those principles are?
Sure. So the way I did it, I'll just share my thing, because remember, parallel path, I'm still doing the work that I asked people to do. I'm still doing the practices. So I realized that what happened to me was my dad was terribly verbally abusive, and he didn't like me at all. He liked my sister, my brother. He didn't like me. I was too much like my mother. I looked like my mother, and it was just too painful for him. So he could not deal with me. And so therefore, I knew that he was going to get mad at me worse than anybody else, so I learned to lie. If I could tell him something or say something that would endear me to him or make him happy, I didn't get abused, right? So I became such a great liar, I could be a triple agent. I mean, I was just,
Not a double agent, a
oh
triple
my God,
agent.
I'd be a triple agent. I was such a good liar. The other good news is it did help me when I went into theater, because I'm a good liar, and that's what acting is. All right.
Yeah.
The trouble is when I became a young adult, now the lying was a way for me to hide my mistakes, my insecurities, for me to try to ingratiate myself to people by saying I did stuff I didn't do. Oh, did you could see that new movie? Yeah, it was great. Oh my God, what's the movie? Simple little things like that I would do. So let's go back to why. So my first principle that I decided that I absolutely was going to live by was honesty. I will say there are two, and I've told my grandson this, there's 2 times you can lie in your life: to save your life or to save the life of somebody else. Lie as best you can, not to get out of trouble. Can't do that. So that idea that now when you say to me, someone asked me the other day, they went on and were talking and talking and talking, and this gentleman, and he said, I'm talking too much, aren't I? And I go, yes, you are. And he went, what? I had this most
surprised him with
goes,
honesty.
yeah. I go, well, don't ask me a question if you don't want me to be honest. Yes, you are talking too much. You haven't asked me anything about me. You haven't talked about. It was a very funny moment that I thought, I go, well, you really are honest. And I say what I mean what I say, I just don't say it mean. So that's part of the honesty. I don't have to be brutally honest. I just have to be firmly, kindly honest. So that informs all of my decisions about how I'm going to speak to people and do things in my life. The second one is kindness. Because I saw what the brutality of someone who was so traumatized as a kid that my father became abusive, I realized I was at risk of being abusive. You are at risk of doing to yourself and others what was done to you. So I really had to say, oh, you can act kind, but are you really kind?
I got to repeat that. You're at risk of doing to others.
You're at risk of doing to yourself and others what was done to you.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
So you are at risk of neglecting yourself unless you accomplish something. That's what we just determined, right? Oh, I don't have to do something if I'm not going to get the $100, or right? Or I'll do something really good, so I don't have to say that I'm doing bullshit. You cannot come in here unless you get an A. So you have to be really careful about that. And so kindness was my second one, even when I'm irritated. And I get irritated a lot, that I still have to speak kindly to someone. And the third one for me was integrity. I had a horrible practice because I wanted to be liked, and I wanted to not, and I wanted people to, I don't even know, think that I was doing more than I was. I would say yes to everything, and then I would back out. I would not show up, and I'd give a lie about why I didn't show up. So honesty, integrity, yeah. Everybody who has a date with him for some kind of meeting or something.
I tell the best version of the truth about why I didn't show up.
Yeah. So here's all you have to do now. This is the best practice ever, is you don't say yes. You have a right to say, let's meet at such and such, or do such, or I can come out. Like, let me check my schedule. That's always your right. And you go look in that phone before you say to anybody to see how booked you are. So that will help. And see if there's anything that Hannah, do that. Give yourself, well, I need to know now. Well, I can't tell you now. If you need to know now, it's a no.
Okay.
That's your right, just to say that. Anybody's pressuring you to say, I need to know if you want to go now. I can't. If you can't let me, give me 6 hours to go check with whatever. And the second thing that really is helpful is, now that you're going to be honest, you go, you know what, I'm calling you to apologize. I'm not going to make it, and I'm not going to make it, and I'm very sorry, and if there's any way I can make it up to you. No reason why you can't make it. You don't need to say that.
Yeah.
All you need to do is say, I'm not going to make it, and I'm really sorry. And is there a way that I can make it up to you?
And what was that principle? So it was
honesty,
that's
integrity,
kindness, and then integrity.
Integrity is I said I was going to do something, and then I have to do it. Now, let's just say there are times you cannot do everything you said you can do. Integrity is what's going to help you go do a walk for you, because you deserve, you'll feel better. So when I say yes, first of all, now I'm very mindful about how many yeses I give in a week.
Yep.
And then if I mess up, and I said to someone the other day, I can't do it. I'm sorry. I won't even have an excuse. I'm just telling you I can't do it. And they said, Suzi, first of all, do not worry about it. And I know why you're not going to make it. And I go, why is that? They go, you're exhausted. I can hear it in your thing. And I go, thank you. Right, I did. I said yes to too much. So I just want people to know that I'm still working on this, that those three things guide me on a daily basis. You can have more if you want. I don't recommend having too many because
Principles?
Yeah,
That
too
you
many.
like, yeah.
Yeah, you just sort of take those top three or top four and really live by them, really practice them, and it's amazing how much better you'll sleep.
You know what I think I need? I was just, as you're talking, I'm visualizing like, so I used to wear, I never believed in, my mom always taught me about this, but the power of like stones.
Oh yeah,
And I didn't like, I grew up like
it's
being,
energy.
and I grew up, it is, I'm
Yeah.
learning, and I'm sure of it because I finally, one day, someone was gonna make me a bracelet, and my wife actually, and she was like very much into it, total coincidence. And she was like, what do you want me, what stones do you want me to use? I said, tiger's eye, because my mom gave me a tiger's eye when I was young. That's all I know, like tiger's eye and amethyst. And there's so many other stones, there's my two that I know of. She made me one, and those stones made me like, all day I was agitated, like ready to fight. And Lord knows why that was my response to it. But then I'd take it off and I wouldn't feel that way. And it was my first time realizing, all right, there is something going on here. I don't know what, but they are energy. But what I was thinking is it'd be great if I had like a bracelet or something. Number one, to remind me of my principles.
That's right.
But also so I could show people like, hey, I want to say yes, but I have this integrity over here.
That's right.
I'm going to do that.
That's right. Because see, if I say
excuse.
yes and then I have to back out, I'm going to lie to you. And then see that there's
T-shirt.
honesty here too. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's imperative. I just can't tell you. And I actually AA. I'm not a member of AA. I am did some work with Al-Anon, which I loved. And they say put principles above personality. And this is
Principles
the funny story.
above personality.
Principles above personality. I thought, oh my God, does that mean I'm going to lose all this personality that I have that's based on dishonesty, lack of kindness? and so it's funny because some people think, well, I like my personality. Well, you can like it, but like your principles more. And
I think one of my favorite things you just said, it was on your second principle, which was kindness.
Yeah.
I say what I mean what I say, but I don't say it mean. I hate people who are brutally honest because not because there's anything wrong with honesty, but I don't hate them. I just hate the moment because I'm like, you were brutally honest with somebody, but if you could take a step back and breathe and find a way to say it that's digestible, it would not only protect you, it would also help them.
oh, no question about it.
But that helped me because I said, if I commit to saying it kindly, I have to sit back and say, what if I say it like this?
Yeah.
Or what if I say it like that? Or I ask somebody like, hey, I have to deliver this message. How would you say it? Because I've committed to saying it kindly, you'll figure it out.
That's right.
Or you'll find the resources if you really want
It's
to.
so much better, and people hear better, and you feel better, and you don't have anything you have to apologize afterwards. And it's a justification. It's also a justification. People say, well, I'm just brutally honest. I go, no, you're just mean.
That's just,
You're just justifying being mean, because you could have said the same thing kindly. So that's just bully mean.
You give, to me, that those people, I would say they give honest people a bad rap.
Yeah.
But you talked about AA. I actually had a question that I wanted to ask you. People with substance abuse, substance abuse, some people call it a disorder, have AA. Religious people have church. And obviously there's like a need for community, for people to come together to improve their mental health and become their best selves. But people who may not consider themselves religious, like, I guess my point is people who don't, if you're not an alcoholic, right, or you don't consider yourself an alcoholic, and you don't consider yourself religious. So I went to an AA meeting once, and I was like, can I say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I went to an AA meeting, and I'll probably frequent them from time to time when I can, and it helped me, and I learned a lot. But it was very like, what struck me about it was the community. Right? There's like 50 people in the room, and hey, how you doing? Everybody was so nice, and I'm like,
Peer to peer.
I wanted to be. It made me want to be a part of that. Church gave me that. It was very similar to the feeling I got at church. But I guess my point is, what is there for people if it's not the gym,
Right.
if it's not AA, if it's not church, because you don't consider yourself religious, what is there?
Well, I think that idea of spirituality, one thing that AA did really well, it was a doctor and a man that were struggling with their own substance use. One of the things we now know, because we can look at the brain and we can now find out people's past, is that we know that the opposite of addiction, when people are struggling, first of all, remember that alcohol or any drug taking is a solution that could be a very dangerous solution, but there is such trauma, there is such a need to get relief that they're using people, places, and things. And I just want you to think about that for a second, that when they wrote the big book of AA, they listed people first as the first thing that people use. Well, that's the first thing you meet in life. When you come out of that birth canal, you're going to meet people, and they're going to either help you or hurt you. So people, places, where's your place in this world? If you don't belong, you're going to be anxious and you're going to drink or be depressed. And the last thing is things. So even stuff. So, and drugs and alcohol go in that category. So it's actually the third thing. So if there's trauma in the first two, chances are you're going to be looking to the third for some kind of relief.
What are those three things one more time?
So people, places, and things.
And you said if there's trauma in
And
people in your lives,
right? And there's also,
places.
then you'll look for your place in the world. So that's
it.
when you start to go to school and you start to go places.
There's trauma around
right?
that.
And there's trauma around that. You didn't belong there. And then you try to buy something, you get things to try to make you feel better about yourself.
Got it.
And then if that doesn't work, the things end up being the drugs and alcohol to try to give you relief. I think what's the most important thing is the opposite of addiction is connection, which is exactly what you experienced in that room, is that we connect with one another. Now, when you're using drugs and alcohol, it's hard to connect. I don't know if you've ever tried to talk to someone when they're high. It doesn't go very well.
It's disconnecting.
That's right. So giving up the substance in order to connect. First of all, you're not going to feel great when you give up all that substance because on some level, you've learned to use it to help you cope, right? The thing is that you deserve more than coping. You deserve to thrive. And I would say that spirituality, AA's actually said that alcoholism is a spiritual malady. They actually use those words, spiritual malady. So it's that idea that your spirit was never nurtured enough for you to believe that you are fine and capable just as you are, like just in the skin that you're in and everything else. So AA decided that they were going to help people be more spiritual, and that was through the connection of power greater than yourself and the other people in the room and your principles. So if you can't do that, if you can't do any of those programs or any of that work or church or anything like that, for me, it's always the joy of what you do yourself, how you bring joy to yourself. Is it art? Is it music? Is it dance? Is it building things? Is it being outside? I have a huge amount of love and connection to the horses and the natural world. That's my church. That's where I totally thrive. And that will lower my blood pressure and help me. You have to find something that fills that joy inside of you. And it's not happiness. It's joy. It's something you can do by yourself, for yourself, that you feel connected with. That will help a lot. Most people that are so traumatized that they have to use drugs and alcohol or something else have given up that joy because they lived with people that said, no, you have to do this to be valuable. You have to do this for me to be proud of you. And then they're on the wrong path.
You know, it's interesting. You made me think of my sister again. I bring her up a lot because we were really close, and she was struggling. She would just ever so often have these like deep, I would just call them depressions. I don't know. I really don't know what to call it, and typically I would let her, her daughter would go stay, my niece would go stay with my mom or me. But then my sister would just come live with me and stay in the room, and she was just like, she just honestly couldn't get out of bed. And but before she came, it was always a lot of alcohol. And then she would come stay with me for like 2 weeks, and we bring her daughter to come see her, and so on and so forth. And then she's back on her feet and back out, you know. But then one time it was so bad, and
it's progressive.
Yeah, it got worse and worse. Yeah. And so I found a place in Houston called the Menninger Clinic or something like that. It was supposed to be the best place in Houston we could find. And it was funny, I went to go visit her and I saw a parent, I saw a famous wrestler, who I recognized, and then a parent of one of my friends, who was like a world-renowned surgeon from Las Vegas. It was so weird. I was like, I've met two people I know in here. And then my sister was there, and then, so I spoke to the therapist, and she said that, you know, one of the things, like I was saying, like she's drinking a lot. I think she's alcoholic. They said she's not an alcoholic. I was like, really? And they're like, no. They said she's self-medicating. And if there was like anything I took from that experience,
That's it.
scratching my head on what do they mean by that, and they were very clear, like this is something very different.
Yeah.
And it sounds like what you're talking about.
It was her solution to try to lift up the depression or ease the anxiety. So she was looking for something, relief, we call it relief, at any moment. Like anything that could give her a bit of a dopamine hit so that she felt okay, because there was such a struggle about her belonging and feeling valuable and feeling okay.
So tell me, you talked a lot about in our group sessions here that there's 3 core emotions, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but I believe
Primary.
3 primary emotions.
That's
and
right.
Joy. That's the one everybody messes up, so I'll start with that one first. Fear.
And
sadness.
sadness.
Educate us on that.
Okay, so.
And what's the difference between, how do people confuse those with other things and all?
Right. So if you look on your phone, you have a million, feelings. And when you really get right down to it, it's kind of like colors. So there's 3 primary colors. Everybody says red, blue, and green. But if you think about it, no, one of those colors is made by 2 other colors. So when I say primary, it's a color that can only be that color. It's an emotion that can only be that emotion. And then when you mix them together, you get other emotions and other colors. So the idea that joy, fear, and sadness are the 3 primary emotions. People say to me, well, what about anger? We always use anger. I'm always irritated. I just said I was irritated, a low level all day long. So why I say that is because when babies come out, they don't know anything about emotion. We teach them the words of emotions. All they know is pleasant and unpleasant. It's unpleasant to be hungry. It's unpleasant to be sitting in your own poopy diaper. So they will do a physical response to that, which is either crying or whatever. Then we start to teach them about what we think they're feeling when something goes on. And if you think about the first time you see a child, and you have one, give a temper tantrum. We call it a temper tantrum, right? That's what we say. If you really think about it, it's when the child wanted something, knew that it was going to make them joyous, and you said no. You said no. No, you can't have that bowl of sugar. No, you can't have that toy now. And they throw a fit. And if you think about it, if you give them, they're crying, they're yelling, right?
Yeah.
Right? But they're crying. They're crying and they're yelling and they're anxious. So I'm going to put it up in the refrigerator. You can't have it. Oh, no, don't. Like, okay. So they're fearful and they're sad. Yet we keep saying, oh, you're angry. Don't do that temper tantrum. Blah, blah. No. So are you afraid that I'm not going to let you have that toy again? Yes. Are you scared that I'm not going to let you have that toy again? Yes. Oh, okay. So fear and sadness. I'm going to let you have that toy again. Not right now. Like, this is what we need to take time. We need to go now.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to give this to you once we're in the car and things are settled. But when we have to go, we have to go.
Yeah.
So you are teaching them, you're the one teaching them that you're angry. No, they're fearful and sad.
Yeah.
Now, how about this? I'll give you something to cry about. Wipe that look off your face. All that shit that we say to kids.
Yeah.
How about if we just acknowledged that they get fearful and sad? Anger is created from unwitnessed, unprocessed, unacknowledged fear and sadness. All the times that you were told you weren't allowed to cry, you weren't allowed to be scared. What are you scared of? Don't be, right? I mean, think about that. What did you do with that fear and sadness that is part of being a part of the animal kingdom and a human? It was stayed inside of you and it got rock hard. And then when it came up again, when somebody does something 20 years later similar to that, especially your partner, then you're going to get irritated because you're going back to all that unprocessed, unwitnessed fear and sadness. Quick one. I was ignored by my dad. He didn't do his job. And I go into the grocery store now 50 years later, and the checkout counter person is having a private conversation on my time. I'm in line, I need to go, and I'm getting irritated.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah.
Because that person is ignoring me, which is exactly what my dad did, unless he was yelling at me, and wasn't doing his job to help me and to help me do my thing. It's that simple. You can draw lines to everything that you're irritated, frustrated, angry, rageful, and murder. That's the 5 levels.
Say that again. The 5 levels of
5 levels: irritation of anger.
Okay.
So irritation, frustration, anger, rage, and murder.
Good God. So irritation, frustration,
anger,
anger. So anger is one step from rage.
rage,
Rage is one step from
murder. And you can murder yourself or somebody else.
That's right.
Okay? So what happens then is, if you don't ask yourself on a daily basis when you get irritated, what am I afraid of and what am I sad about right now? What is going on that's like what happened before?
What is going on right now that is like something
that
that's
happened before? My
which is the
daughter's
reason
leaving. Exactly. My daughter's leaving a wet towel on the floor. Now it's my grandson.
Yeah.
It's this theme in my life. And I go in and have to pick up these wet towels, or they don't close the butt wipe thing and they all dry out. So that was my childhood. I had to pick up after people. That was my job. I was the one always cleaning and helping to fix things. So when somebody does that, it brings me right back to that child that shouldn't have had to do that all the time. That was not the one that, I was put upon that I had to do that. So that's my fear and sadness. No one ever said to me, I'm so sorry you have to pick up all the time. So you must be scared that you won't be able to do what you need to do. So I took all that fear and sadness, put it inside, it turned to irritation. And when people don't do their job and people don't do, I'm ready. Yeah, and I did have the knife at someone's neck, and I didn't kill her, but I could have.
Can you explain it?
I could have. I've been to that point of murder because she attacked my mother. I was 17 years old, and she came to my house, and my sister, who is 8 inches taller than me and 100 pounds heavier, was afraid to stop her at the door, and I heard her voice, and I went into the kitchen. I opened up the knife drawer, and I went, that one, and picked it. Calm as I'm telling you right now, and I walked up and I took my sister and I pushed her so quickly and so hard away that she flew back about another 5 feet, bounced off the wall, and I'm little.
Yeah.
And I put that knife right up to that woman's neck and I said, if you even lean forward, I will kill you for what you did to my mother. So I just want you to know that, as calm can be. So, like, I felt it, I know. And thank God she was smart enough not to lean forward, because I would do whatever it took to save my family.
So you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that fear and sadness inside of me that I couldn't express to her when she had attacked my mother was inside of me ready. And boy, when she came to that door months and months later, it just went right into murder.
Tell me something real quick. So back to, it's irritation.
That's the low level that you hear all the time. You dropped your thing, this and that, okay. Frustration, a little higher. Like, it's a little more. I'm a little frustrated. You're starting to get more physical. Anger. It's like, now look, stop. I can't even do it with you, and then rage. It's like, whoa.
Some hands, and then,
Yeah.
and it's interesting, and all the beginning of irritation and frustration, that can be triggered by past experiences of unrecognized fear and sadness. So if we deal with this, we may not have to make it to irritation so quickly. We may not have to make it to frustration so fast.
That's right.
And obviously, it's interesting, two things, two stories that I think of. One, my father, he's an excellent preacher, and his storytelling ability is outstanding, and being able to read the Bible verbatim without changing it or anything like that, and read it, in my opinion, the way it was supposed to be read, but then also use real life stories to bring context. I think he has a special gift for that. But he would talk a lot about how he would go visit prisons and look at these people on death row who had committed these murders. And he's like, so many of them, he would sit and talk. He said, they look just like me and you. Like, the way I look at you and what I feel is the same thing I feel with them, their energy. And the point was, he was like, that could easily be you.
That's right.
In the wrong moment, you stay in an argument at home too long, you don't just walk out, or you drink too much in order to have a hard conversation with someone and something. But in a blink of an eye, you can murder somebody. That's what he was trying to explain to somebody. Therefore,
Right.
work on yourself and do all these things so it never gets to that point. And the way he described it, it reminds me of, it sounds like the place between rage and murder is maybe not a lot of control in there. You know, in the blink of an eye,
Yeah.
you could do it into what have I done?
That's right. That's exactly right.
let's
And
not
right,
get
and
there.
so to not even let yourself get to the point of rage, right?
That's what it- yeah.
That's when you do, and to be self-aware. That's the most important thing. We've talked earlier about the idea of knowing what happened to you, how it affected you, and what you get to do to be able to manage these thoughts and feelings, so that I don't have to take everything personal. I can sit there now and go, oh, that reminds me of what my dad used to do, and not have the reaction anymore. Because now I am in charge of me. I'm the master of my thoughts, feelings, and actions. And even if I start to feel that irritation and those words start in my head of like, what the hell, why am I always the one picking up the dog poop, right? I can go there and go, all right, you're picking up the dog poop. No one's making you. You wanted it to pick it up. You actually wanted the dogs too. So let's just pick up the poop, right? And I can even start laughing at myself, going, oh, here's that girl again that's always complaining about her doing too much, and she's the one that brought the dogs in, right? So you can have conversations with yourself, which is so important. If nothing else, therapy and mental health coaching should help you have those conversations with yourself, right? So that you can count on you to talk you off that ledge and to be able to see what's going on.
Well, and I love it because to me, like what I hear is I got to work on not even getting irritated. And it's going to happen, but
gonna happen.
let me do everything I can just to not even get irritated.
Yeah.
All right, well, maybe I get irritated, but what can I do to not be frustrated and back myself out of that? I don't even have to worry about the other three.
That's exactly right. You don't even have to, we're not even going to come up. And one of the ways that you can help yourself not be irritated is take that time for yourself, do that deep breathing, do that meditation, make sure you're not overtired. I hear how many times you guys are getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning to be here. And I'm thinking, I bet you not going to go to bed that night at 7. So you're going to be tired. You have to know whether or not you are overtired. And if you are, you can't help yourself. You're going to have to need food and sugar and adrenaline to keep you going. So that all of a
you're
sudden, if you
overtired.
start crashing at 4 because you've been up since 4, and you fight that, George, you're going to have to get some shots of adrenaline.
You know, the other thing is, the other story that came to mind is when you talked about reaching for the knife. What did you say? It said that one or something?
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that's a good one.
That reminds me of one of the reasons I went through a really tough period in my life and was going through, you know, a lot of pressure, family, friends, everything. And I looked, I'm sure to everybody, I looked completely fine, but I was not fine. And to cut to the chase, I remember sitting on my couch. It was a love seat, and I was laying there like this and just kind of in a slump. And it was like a voice. I just remember looking over and just looking at my wrist and saying, just go get a knife and cut that.
That's right.
Just go cut it. It was like a little voice. It was weird. What? Just cut it, just right there. I never thought about anything like that in my life. In the blink of an eye, the moment, I don't know I don't know why, thank God, it must have been God or something, but I said, you know what? Anything's better than this. Anything is better than this. And it was almost like it wasn't me, it was just like this force or this voice, and I said, anything's better than that. So I threw everything I could fit in my little carry-on suitcase, gone. I went as far as I drove as far as I could, got a plane ticket, flew as far as I could. I remember I drove to about 2 or 3 hours to another town where a friend of mine lived, and it was early in the morning, and I parked at the Best Buy parking lot. And then I hadn't talked to her in like years. We went to college together, but she was the only person I knew that lived there. And I was like, hey, and it was the funniest thing, it was a girl I had a crush on, but like we never dated or anything like that, but she wouldn't give me 2 seconds to whatever. But long story short, we became friends, and I was like, hey, I'm in Austin, can I stay at your place? Because I guess I didn't have money, or I didn't have my credit card. So for some reason I needed a place to stay. And until I could find a place or whatever. And I had to wait for like 2 or 3 hours for her to wake up in the parking lot. And then she let me stay on her couch for a couple of days, and I got a hotel, and then I flew to Boston and so on and so forth. But long story short, I'll just never forget that. And it hasn't happened before or since, but that had to be rage, I guess. And I feel like rage, it's funny when you said that, and the last thing I'll say on it is
Suicide is murder.
I think rage can manifest itself in different ways, and I do think, and I feel like rage, my gut tells me, and I'd love to know what you think, rage can be a snap, your hands on somebody's neck, or a murder, or a fight, or it could be 2 or 3 days of, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
You know? And you're by yourself in your mind, and you might, I don't know, destroy something, plan to sneak up on somebody, plan to murder yourself, so to speak, or just plan to do something crazy. But I don't think rage has to be 1 minute.
No.
I feel like it could be a week, a month,
It can be years.
a zone.
It could be years of rage.
That was my question.
Absolutely, no question. And this idea that when we talk about why mental health and talking about it so much is so important, this idea that so much has happened to you to create who you are now, and that we don't go back and take a look at what happened and to try to understand why I think and feel the way that I do. It's like, I always joke with everybody about how to clean out a garage. When my daughter cleans out a garage, she takes everything out of the garage, even if she just did it 3 weeks ago, including the shelves, and looks at everything and decides whether or not it really needs to go back in there. When was the last time you did that with you? When was the last time you took a look at everything that's happened to you, all that you think you are?
Full inventory.
Where you are in your life right now, and when do you actually take that self-evaluation and go, do I really need this? Is this something that's really important? You look at Hannah and you go, do I really care if she does that or doesn't? Do I really? Yeah, I do. Oh, if I really care, then I've got to show her I really care. So it goes both ways. You will not care about some things that used to irritate you all the time because, you know, it doesn't help you, and you'll actually devote yourself to things that you care about even more. And then you'll have the principles to guide you. So you never let your emotions or your thoughts run your life, ever. Because most of what you think about yourself and feel about yourself was either done to you or told to you. So your dad told you that, and bless his heart, that if you got all A's, you get $100, you'll make money.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, he didn't tell you that go to school and love learning. I don't care what your grade is, I care that you love learning, that you want to learn for the rest of your life. And that I don't care if you got a D and you learned a lot, but you couldn't put it down on that test, I'm good with that. Because I want to know that you love to learn, because that's going to be an investment in you, not that A. That A in algebra did not help you. But learning and loving math will help you. Like loving to learn and loving to figure things out. That will help you.
It was funny, my dad actually said both. And it's funny, I should ask him.
Yeah.
He would get the A's and he'd be like, well, did you learn something?
Yeah.
On top of that.
Yeah, but you should have asked that first. Yeah, ask that first. It's nice you got an A, but what's more important is, did you learn something?
And it's interesting, but I always got A's. I never actually breached like, what if I don't get A's? And it would have been completely fine. And then I should have asked him. He never told me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I was afraid, but I was just like so
He
locked in.
also wanted to learn, though. I mean, I know a little bit about your dad, and the best thing that he did for you was not just give you the $100 for the A. You watched him learn. You watched him change and learn and grow and want to understand the Bible more, want to understand life more, and want to understand story more, that he was a seeker. He wanted to know.
Yeah.
That's better. Your mother is off the charts seeker and wanting to know. So the best investment they made in you was you being able to watch these two people who are not perfect human beings, and I'm not either. This idea that, no, I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to keep understanding. I'm going to keep doing that.
Yeah, amen to that. A couple more questions, and I won't keep you too much longer. So 2 things I wanted to just bring up that have that I think is so spot on. You brought up, and I've never heard anyone else bring it up. Maybe it's brought up. I just haven't. But you talked about mental health. To define it is the space between your contradictions, right? Yeah. Tell me what you mean by that, and maybe just give us a quick, like, simple, easy example.
So I'm helping my dad because we were blue collar. We always had to, fix our own stuff. And I remember the first day that he brought home a tape measure, because before it was a ruler that folded, and before it was a yardstick that didn't. And I thought that was the greatest thing ever. This tape measure. And I'm working with a bunch of, now cut to 30 years later, I'm with a bunch of combat veterans. I'm trying to figure out how to talk about hypocrisy. I'm trying to talk about what you say you do and what you do, and how people say this all the time, especially the kids. Like, go out there and go outside and play and, get some fresh air. You're sitting home smoking your cigarettes while you're in the smoke-filled house. Yeah, go get some fresh air. Awesome. So you tell everybody to do things we're not doing. So I could see that hypocrisy. And that was my trouble with mental health, is that the hypocrisy, yeah. So I remembered that tape measure, and I went, well, how do you measure your mental health? Like, we do all of these surveys and these tests and all of that, assessments they're called. And I went, that's not a guy, we're not going to do that. And I went and got my tape measure, and I was sitting around having to do this event with a bunch of combat veterans. It was in a cabin, and I said, hey, you want to measure your mental health? They're all like, yeah, I really need to know what my mental health is. And I pulled out that tape measure, and I held one end, and I gave one of the veterans the other end, and I said, I'm a really wonderful mother. I love my daughter. She's amazing, and I'm a great mother. And I stand back about 2 feet, and I go, I just told her that I thought she was stupid. And I say, right? And they all look at me, and I go, yeah, I'm really famous, and I've been on Oprah 4 times. And I go back all the way, and I go, yeah, I got $5 on my checking account, like while I'm on Oprah, right? And then I say one more, oh, I really love my boyfriend, and I go all the way back to the end of the room. It was like a 20-foot, tape measure. I said, I love my boyfriend. Yeah, I just cheated on him. Right now, I'm like 20 feet. He's over there, and I'm over there, and I'm going, and they're all looking at me, going, holy shit. And I go, yeah, there's my mental health, right? And so then I walk in, and I go, I apologize to my boyfriend. I made amends. I walk in, I got, $500 in my checking account now, whatever, I have 5,000. So sort of making it up as I go along. And then I go all the way back, and I'm as close to him now as I am to you. And I said, I made amends to my daughter, and I said, we can't say the S word in my family. And I remember my grandson saying, what, we can't say shit? And I go, no, we can say shit, we can't say stupid. So I'll never say that again. And so now I'm about this far, or like I'm really healthy. Like, look how healthy I am at my age. Yeah. And I have a donut once a week, whether I need it or not. And I have no guilt about it whatsoever, right? Yeah. So my space is like about here for my health, for how I talk, what I do in my life. I got, I'm pretty close.
So then, just to make sure that this was a aha moment for me. So say this is the full length. Let's just call it, because this is as far
say
as
you're
my arms
taking
go.
care of yourself, like doing what you're right. So it's that far.
So this is a full length. So an example would be, going around and being a hypocrite. This is a hypocrite, right? This is honest. I'm telling everybody, like, I lead a healthy life. I'm the most healthy person on the planet. Da 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 da. I have 10 donuts every day. That would be over here.
That's right.
But 0 donuts would be also just as unhealthy, and many would be also somewhat unhealthy.
Right.
But then having a little space, I have my donut once a week.
Have
I have
some
my
contradiction in your life. That's okay.
Just a little bit.
It's the amount. It's the amount.
Health is.
Yeah, and this is, so I have a contradiction. This is 100% no eating donuts, and I'm eating one once a week or once every 2 weeks, that much. So that means that I have a small space between my contradictions, right?
Enough space to be happy.
That's right. And so I'm honest now about it. I enjoy it. I love that donut. I really appreciate it. And so I'm okay with that. We don't all have to be perfect. I'll tell you one thing. I had a friend who was no fat and low fat, none of this, blah, blah, blah. And she was just the epitome of health in her eating. She got more autoimmune system. She was more stressed. And I'm the one eating the donut, and I'm healthier than she is, because she thought, being 100% perfect on her eating, only healthy, would save her. But she was so stressed about it, and she was so rigid, that she actually wasn't healthy. She actually could have had a donut and been healthier because she would have been more relaxed. So she's not stressing her body.
It reminds me of some of these stories of, they study these communities. I think they call them blue zones, where
Yeah, blue zones.
I think they found one of the common denominators was not always how the people eat or drink or smoke, but they're being connected to a community,
There it is, belonging.
right?
The
How they
connection.
feel,
How
right?
they feel about where they live and who they are and who they're with. Absolutely.
So last two things I want to cover tonight real quickly is routines, or talk about rituals or routines, the difference and why they're important. How would you respond to that? And then spirituality. But first, rituals. Like, and sometimes, like when I hear the word ritual, I think of like a cult, right? Or I
Right.
think of like religious rituals. But obviously, there's positive connotations of it. But you said that you opened my eyes to rituals in a way that, like, I don't feel like I have any rituals, and you quickly made me realize I do have a lot of rituals, but I'm not really aware of them. But could you talk about the importance of rituals,
Yeah.
right, wrong, or you know?
So I have a ritual that I get up in the morning. I've already set the coffee, and I hit the coffee button just about at 7 o'clock, so that I know the coffee's being made, and I feed the dogs, and I'm making my own cup of tea. The coffee's for the rest of the house. I make I buy these special tea bags. I have to use 2. I use raw sugar, 2 teaspoons of raw sugar, and half and half. That little ritual of the coffee, my tea, and the dogs starts me out right. And even when I travel, I bring those tea bags with me, because my ritual, that tea ritual, and you've often heard about the Japanese have a tea ritual, I realize that when I give myself a calming comfort ritual, that I'm starting my day with something that I can count on. So it can be anything, and we also talked about ceremony, what that means. So
Ceremony.
yeah, hanging out in the wonderful the Native American community that I frequented for a long time, thanks to my dad. He was Penobscot Indian. They have ceremony for everything. My Navajo friends have ceremonies for everything. It's amazing how much that grounds people and connects people, and it's something you can count on. We have a sweat lodge over at the treatment center that I work at. That's a ceremony. That is a cleansing ceremony for you. So the more that we honor those ceremonies, here we have, you have weddings, and you have baptisms, and you have all of those things. And sometimes we've lost the point of the ceremony because we've made them an event. They've gone from ceremony to an event.
Yeah.
They've gone something that we're supposed to do for something. We've lost the whole point of it. So I'm a big believer, like just in a boxing match, that idea that they come up and you face each other and you have to touch gloves, and then you have to touch gloves afterward, that you have to go up and...
It's a ritual.
It's a ritual. It's a ritual, and I think it's just being able to go and sit in your corner. That's part of a ritual, to be able to do some self-assessment. That's what that's for.
And what would you say the value of having, being proactive with having rituals? What would be the value of having rituals that, that you're thoughtful
safety.
about?
So it helps.
Excuse me 1 second.
Yeah.
A little piece of saliva. Okay.
I'm getting so old, I'm not coordinated enough to swallow well. The idea of rituals, I can give you a prime example now that you're a father. The ritual of going to bed, getting ready for bed. None of us take the ritual of getting ready to go to bed. I do the same thing at night. I have a ritual to get ready for bed.
You have a process.
The process of getting ready for bed. This idea of the bath, the book, reading the book, picking the books, reading the book, where you sit, where Hannah is sitting. This whole thing about a song, whatever it is, those rituals help children understand that there's a consistency in their life. There's a stability in their life. And those of us that don't understand how important rituals are will miss, and we will always be at the risk of becoming more unstable each morning when we don't have those rituals, or in the evening. We don't bookend. It's called a bookend, actually. We don't have bookends anymore because we read all the books on our iPads. But you need a bookend at the opening of the day and the end of the day. Jake and I do a ritual of you look at the sun in the morning, which is coming from the east, and you go outside. He goes outside every morning and with bare feet and stands on the ground because there's energy that comes through the earth. So you ground yourself. Get ready for your day. Simple things. Some people pray, some people it's meditation. Have a ritual for when you wake up and for when you go to bed. Before you go to bed. Absolutely imperative.
You know, it's I became really good friends with Ray Lewis, and he's very much like that. He has he always watches the sunset wherever he's at. He's gonna go find the sunset, and then he smokes cigars. And every time I'd have to go hang out with, every time I'd spend time with him, I'd have to go smoke a cigar with him. And I was like, here I go, and like I don't smoke, and like I have to come home smelling like cigars and all that. So I'd be like, ah. But he told me he was like his, I think uncle got him into smoking cigars, and uncle would always laugh. And as he became older, he just would do it just like his uncle did. But his uncle would tell him, you still haven't figured out why. You know, and he would say, he'd see him and say, "You figured out that cigar yet?" That was his joke. And now I realize every time I was with him, whenever he would have the cigar, it was just me and him, and we would just talk. Would look at his phone, but he wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't do anything meaningful until that thing was done. It was almost like an hour of me time.
Exactly.
Not
it was me time. It was almost meditative. Yeah, you know, and the ritual of a cigar is interesting. It's different than a cigarette, and it takes a while. But that idea, you're giving yourself permission to relax, to reflect, to enjoy your company. It's like that's what the cigar represents for him, is permission. And that's what a ritual does. It gives you permission to be able to reflect, be self-aware, rest, relax, give gratitude, give appreciation, all of that.
It's really interesting. I'm learning a lot. I mean, I'm piecing together a lot as we're talking. The last thing I wanted to talk about, I keep going back to my dad. It's funny, by the way, you talked about the
space between you.
He would say all the time in church, he said the worst thing is and even out of church, just like the worst thing is a hypocrite. And
it's pretty bad.
In my opinion, I mean, in my mind, I would always just think, that's just a liar, right? And that's why I thought he was saying it, but I realized like they're dangerous to themselves and other people.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was thinking about, my brain keeps going back to church, but spirituality. And the reason I bring it up is I was meditating the other day, and 3 words came to me. And I feel like I'm starting to understand meditation a lot more now. It's almost like listening more than it is, because it feels like when I pray, it seems similar. But meditation is more like listening, I think. But long story short, the words that came to me were belong, like what most people need, belong, which obviously I've gotten from you, believe, obviously, and then the last one was be happy, right? Like, but that's what they want. You can't just have that. But I think so much comes from spirituality, and like I'm learning a lot about energy from our conversations. And that it's a thing.
It's a real thing.
There's ions, and like it's not like otherworldly. But long story short, what place? I mean, to cut to the chase, what place do you think spirituality should have in people's lives? Because obviously it's been used in negative ways. Because I don't think spirituality and religion have to be the same thing, but a lot of people go into religion thinking they're going to enhance or find their spirituality, and they get something else. And then some people do find it in religion. The point is, I think you've obviously expressed that it's important. I think it's important, but why is it important? And where should people start if they don't have a guide?
So I think you also brought up the word believe, which is important to believe in yourself, right? To believe that you are valuable just because you breathe. So this idea that you don't have to do anything, and to believe that you are part of something bigger than yourself. So that idea that we can actually feel, in the truest sense of body sensation, thoughts and feelings and body sensation, that we are a part of something that's alive, that this world is a part of something, is the greatest connective belonging you can have. So when you're in a prisoner of war camp and you're being tortured, and I have a friend that went through that at the Hanoi Hilton, and there's nothing in your life at that moment that lets you, nothing is wonderful, nothing is kind, and you are in horrible, horrible torture. And that, what else could it be that makes you take that next breath, makes you reach out to the other prisoner of war, the people in Ukraine, the people in Palestine and Israel right now, and you, in Africa, so many places in the world right now that are struggling so horribly. It is that energetic connection that we have with one another that you can count on. It will show up for you. You plug in your phone every day, you're looking for cell, you're looking for the internet, and you are a transmitter and receiver just as we're sitting here right now. There is electrical energy between you and I now that has been touching since the time we sat here. You have 7 to 10 feet of energy coming off your body. I have 7 to 10 coming off of mine. And it is constantly bumping up against and connecting with the rest of the energy of the world. And you can try to deny it, right? You can try to say, no, I don't believe in that. If I can't hear it, if I can't see it, it doesn't exist. That's the most wonderful part about spirituality, and the fact that our spirit, our spiritual energy is connecting all the time, that I love that you just can't stop it. You can try, you can do whatever you think you can to not be part and not connect with other people. And the more you do it, the more the universal spiritual energy is going to just prove you wrong constantly. And you could even call them coincidences if you want. You could do that. Or you can just surrender to the fact that we're all part of the spiritual energy world, that energetic world. So you don't have to even be religious. You can be scientific. Yeah. You could be, into nature and just believe. Whatever it is, you cannot deny it.
No, it's a beautiful thing. It's like
it is.
It's funny. It's funny. When I was in college, I guess it's the beginning of me understanding that we have current. One of my friends, she was from Switzerland. She taught me that we'd always try to like find our cars with the beeper or whatever. Like, where's my car? And you click, to unlock your car. And she'd see me wandering. And she taught me to put the key right up under my chin.
Yes.
And that it would travel further.
It does.
She was like, your body becomes like an antenna or something.
Yep.
I was like, and to this day I do it and it works. But long story, so anyone who doesn't believe that, try it and you'll see that there is electrical current running through us that you can do things with. But the most beautiful thing you said is, belonging, probably one of the strongest forces, survival forces, hopefully a force that will guide you to joy and happiness and will keep you healthier than stopping a lot of your bad habits, being connected to actual human beings. But what you're saying is the belief and the feeling that you're connected, whether you're with another human being or not, you're connected to the universe through a higher power.
All the time.
Gotcha.
All the time. And
So
the
you
trouble is your thoughts and your feelings might tell you you're not, but the fact is your spiritual energy. And the more you use that quote unquote intuition, that gut feeling, that ability to go, you know what, I don't feel like going out today, I don't feel like, and I'm all alone, and I'm gonna go out anyway, and I'm gonna go for a walk. And all of a sudden you bump into someone or you meet somebody, and you go, oh, what a coincidence. I wasn't gonna, it's like, yeah, okay. What a coincidence.
We go again.
Right? Yeah, and you can send mental messages to one another. You can support one another. Things can come to you. You can think about something and go, I really want to get better at this and I really want to do that. And then 3 days later, you're on Instagram and you see that someone's opening a boxing gym.
That's how we met.
And then you call them and they go, I want to build a community. And I'm thinking, God, I don't feel like I belong to this community. And now he's going to be... Yeah.
Whoop, there it is.
There it is. That's right.
Well, Suzi, thank you so much. Obviously we did talk forever, and I look forward to doing something special with you, helping a lot of people.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that. We're going to do that.
Awesome.